Coming up on Locked On Dodgers, we have a great mailbag episode because we have great questions from you listeners. We're going to talk about Dino Ebel maybe being too conservative. Going to talk about postseason roster, of course, a lot of postseason talk. Then talk about the possibility of Jason Heyward winning the Comeback Player of the Year award, rookies for the Dodgers this year, and a whole lot more. That's what's on tap. So let's get Locked On Dodgers.
You are Locked On Dodgers, your daily Los Angeles Dodgers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Dodger fans, this is Locked On Dodgers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning. Remember, this show is free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube simply by searching for Locked On Dodgers. Or even better, go ahead and subscribe wherever you're watching or listening right now. Then you can be an everydayer just like we are. If this is your first time with us, I am Jeff Snider. My co-host is Vince Samperio. We are doing another split episode today, so I'll be with you for the first part. Vince will wrap it up a little bit later. Vince and I are both lifelong Dodger fans, just like you are. We've also both spent time covering the Dodgers in the press box and the locker room. So we're not quite insiders, but we bring you the smart fans perspective on our boys in blue every weekday morning. And that's what we're going to do today. First, I want to give a shout out my buddy Thomas, Champagne Guapi on Twitter. I gave him a shout out a couple weeks ago when he promised to send me a Fernando Valenzuela bobblehead. And then I gave him a negative shout out last week when he still hadn't sent it to me. Well, I got it today. So once again, Thomas is finally a man of his word. Thanks, Thomas. And I now have 3 of the bobbleheads the Dodgers did this year. I have Fernando and I have Oral, and I have the dual bobblehead of James Outman and Miguel Vargas because of nice, Fernando and the Outman Vargas both came from podcast friends. And for the Oral Hershiser one came from a kid on my son's baseball team. They're Dodger fans too, and they happen to be at that game, and they got us an extra bobblehead. So appreciate that. If you have any of the other ones that I don't have, shoot me a DM. We can figure out if we can work out a deal. But today we have a mailbag episode to talk about. Obviously, playoffs are on people's minds. There's also some non-postseason questions here. We're going to try to get a mixed bag of questions and really good questions this week. You guys usually do pretty good questions, and let's jump right into it. With some postseason talk, we actually got basically the same question from 2 of our most loyal listeners. Kevin at Blue Goon 82. He said, do you see Kolten Wong sneaking onto the playoff roster? I like his bat off the bench, but the 4-man bench appears to be locked in with Barnes, Rosario, Taylor, and Kike. Maybe start Taylor and left with Peralta off the roster. And then our buddy Pat Dwyer, he asked basically the same question. He said, tonight's lineup, talking about yesterday or Sunday's lineup, is my postseason lineup against a right-handed starter. CT3 has earned it over Peralta right now. With this in mind, I'd also start to question Peralta's spot on the postseason roster. Kolten Wong provides greater defensive value and arguably more pop. Thoughts? And this has kind of been the elephant in the room the last month or so, is that David Peralta has gone cold again. He hasn't hit very well, definitely hasn't hit for much power. Earlier in the season when he was struggling really bad, we said, and then he started hitting some singles, and I said, he's not going to actually have value until he starts hitting some extra base hits. And then he did. He hit some home runs, hit some doubles. He's back now to having almost no power. He can still get a hit here and there. But the fact is, if you look at the stats, the David Peralta doesn't really deserve a spot on the postseason roster based on how he's played. His OPS plus, if you, there we go. His OPS plus is 81, which would be basically Miguel Rojas and Austin Barnes are the only ones worse than that who are likely to be on the postseason roster. Rojas has hit a lot better lately. And so, Peralta is worse than Ahmed Rosario, worse than Kike Hernandez, worse than Kolten Wong. And we're talking about just those guys, those 3 guys specifically, just their time with the Dodgers. Everybody else, you pick an offensive player, he's hit better than David Peralta unless his name is Miguel Rojas or Austin Barnes. And so you think about what Peralta brings to the table. a lot of it is dugout stuff. Obviously everybody loves him. He's a leader in the clubhouse, leader in the dugout. That's the kind of stuff you can get from a guy. He could be in the dugout even if he's not on the roster for a series. I don't know the exact rules, but I know that you can have guys who aren't on the active roster. I assume it's like a taxi squad you can have of a certain number of people who are with the team. And so Peralta could be in the dugout even if he's not on the roster. So really the question becomes, is it him or Kolten Wong? Do you think about Michael Busch? There's maybe even think about Miguel Vargas. There's different options. And Wong maybe makes the most sense because he is a veteran. He's won a World Series. He's got postseason experience. He's not going to be overwhelmed by the moment, and he does play solid defense in a couple positions. And so, you know what? I don't hate the idea of Kolten Wong on the roster over David Peralta. Even though Michael Busch is a better hitter than Kolten Wong at this point, like there's always that experience thing. And we saw last year, Dave Roberts was afraid to even use Miguel Vargas in the postseason. We've seen in previous years, Cody Bellinger, the year he was awesome, won Rookie of the Year. He was lousy in the postseason. We've seen that a lot with different guys. I don't know if the Dodgers want to risk a hit or not. With all the risk they're taking on the pitching side with the young guys, don't know that they'll want to go with a young hitter at this point, especially a young hitter who's been in the minor leagues the last few weeks. But Kolten Wong over David Peralta, I don't hate the idea. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts in the YouTube comment section or through social media or email or whatever. Love to hear what you think because I'm not opposed to that idea. I do think, Peralta does strike me as the kind of guy who could come up with a big hit in the postseason, one of those clutch hits. But Kolten Wong maybe could too. It's not like, I'm torn on that. I think that's a tough decision, and I don't think it's a no-brainer to go with Peralta. I guess I would think that Peralta probably gets the spot over Wong, but who knows? Love that question, and not surprised that Pat and Kevin both thought of it at the same time. Next question. Actually, let's take a break really quick. Then I'll do a couple questions after the break, and then I'll turn it over to Vince. So, more questions on the way. Thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning, and please keep it Locked On Dodgers. This episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. Are you struggling to close deals? Cold outreach is wasting the time of both the buyer and the seller at every stage, especially when sellers are using shallow and outdated data. Your organization can overcome these challenges with technology that translates comprehensive, high-quality buyer data into real-time insights. These deeper insights empower sales reps and teams to adopt the habits of top performers, which leads to better outcomes like more pipeline, higher win rates, and larger deals. We call this deep sales. And we, meaning LinkedIn, have built the first deep sales platform with the next generation of LinkedIn Sales Navigator. Right now, you can try LinkedIn Sales Navigator and get a 60-day free trial at linkedin.com/lockedon. That's linkedin.com/lockedon for a 60-day free trial. Let LinkedIn Sales Navigator help you sell like a superstar today. Just go to linkedin.com/lockedon and get started. Hey, I'm back. I want to thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning. Especially want to thank you everydayers who are with us every morning for about a half hour. We try to make this podcast easily digestible each day so you can listen to it on your way to work or while you're getting ready in the morning. Half hour every morning. It's all we ask. And if you want to be an everydayer, just do that every weekday morning, either listening or watching. Also want to remind you can catch tonight's or today's Dodger games, every Dodger game, the Dodgers radio broadcast on Sirius XM and the SXM app simply by searching for Dodgers. And again, remind you, if you're watching this on YouTube, we'd love to hear your thoughts in the YouTube comment section. If you are listening on the podcast, we'd love to hear from you through social media or email. Vince will give you all that contact info at the end. And jumping into our next question, this one comes from MRRuss16 on Twitter. He asked, do you think Dino Ebel is holding runners on third base holding runners at third on a base hit more than normal over the last month or so? And if yes, do you think it's for safety? Seems like it's been hurting Freddie Freeman's RBI total. And I don't know about more over the last month or so, but I do think I have noticed. I think Freddie. There have been several times when Freddie has hit a double that you thought might score Mookie for first, and it didn't. And I think there's a combination of things here. I do think there is some safety involved, but not specifically, oh, let's not risk it. It's just weighing the risk reward. And, if there's nobody out or even one out, knowing that you have Will Smith and Max Muncy and JD Martinez coming up behind those guys, having Freddie on second and Mookie on third, Mookie's most likely going to score. And he has scored most of the time. And that's part of why Max Muncy does have over 100 RBIs, because Mookie and Freddie are both on base for him a lot. That's why JD Martinez is almost to 100 RBIs. And the fact is Freddie Freeman is also almost to 100 RBIs. They're all getting their RBIs, but I think there is some risk reward that Dino Ebel is not calculating on the fly, but he's aware of it. And so you're not going to send Mookie, you're not going to risk getting Mookie thrown out when you have the bashers coming up behind him, especially with no outs or even one out. 2 outs, you're maybe a little bit more risky. But most of the time, I think it's that case where, yeah, I'm 60% sure that Mookie could have scored, 70% sure. Well, I'm 80% sure that he's going to score if I hold him up. And so that's kind of the calculus that's going on. The other thing that nobody really talks about is that Mookie's not very fast anymore. And Mookie was never really as fast as you might have expected him to be. He was fast, but not crazy fast. In 2015, when he was 22 years old, he was the 64th fastest person in baseball, which was 91st percentile. That's pretty good. That's fast. His sprint speed that year was 28.7 feet per second. And then in 2020, 5 years later, his first year with the Dodgers, his sprint speed was 28.3 feet per second, which was, again, 64th fastest in baseball, 87th percentile. So those 2 years he was fast. The rest of his career, he's been, basically between 2015 and 2020, his league rank, while he was 64th in both 2015 and 2020, the 4 years in between there, 165th, 178th, 160th, 190th percentiles at 76, 74, 76, 72. So he was still above average, but not a speedster by any means. And then he had that hip issue in 2021. And ever since then, he's been noticeably slower. Like his slowest before his hip injury was 27.9 feet per second in both 2017 and 2019. Well, 2021, 27.1. That was when he was injured. Okay, well, that makes sense. He slowed down. But the last 2 years, last year and this year, only 27.3 feet per second. So the ranks the last 3 years, 319th, 314th, 316th percentiles. That's 53rd, 50th, and 48th. So Mookie is now this year 48th percentile, officially below average speed. And he's still a very good base runner, can steal bases, he's a good base runner. He's not very fast though. He's barely faster than Will Smith. He's slower than, like, if you're looking at the Dodgers list, Mookie's the 7th fastest guy on the Dodgers. If we actually, that's minimum opportunities. Let's see. Still 7th fastest. Of the guys currently on the roster, it's only Chris Taylor, James Outman, and Ahmed Rosario faster than him. But they're all quite a bit faster than him. Chris Taylor's 28.3, so a full foot per second faster. James Outman, 28.9. Ahmed Rosario, 29.4. The other guys who are faster than Mookie who've been on the team this year, Johnny DeLuca, Jake Marisnik, and Miguel Vargas. But then Will Smith is just barely behind Mookie. Jason Heyward's tied with Will Smith. And so, I think that's part of it too. Mookie's just not as fast as we think he is or think he should be, which is fine. Like I said, he's still a very good base runner, and it's not really hurting the team because most of the time there's the guys coming up who are going to drive him in anyway. But I think all of that goes into the decisions that Dino Ebel makes as to whether to send Mookie. And yeah, it is playing into why Freddie hasn't yet gotten to 100 RBIs. And that's okay. Freddie will get there. Hopefully, 4 games in Colorado will help Freddie's doubles total and his RBIs total. Dodgers have a chance if Freddie and JD both get to 100 RBIs. I think JD's at 98 and Freddie's at 95, I think. If they both get to 100, that would give the Dodgers 4 guys with 100 RBIs this year, which they have never done before. So that would be cool. And Freddie is still only, I think, 3 doubles away from 60 to become the first guy with 60 doubles since 1936. All right, last question that I'm going to do before I turn it over to Vince comes from Michael Whitty at Michael649158575. He says, I'm a proud everydayer. Thank you, Michael. And he asks, how many rookies did the Dodgers use this year, and how many of them made their MLB debut this season? And this isn't my last one. I have one more after this, just so you know. Dodgers have used 16 rookies this year. 9 of them made their major league debut this year. The 7 who didn't debut this year but were still rookies: Tyler Sear, Michael Grove, Andre Jackson, Tyson Miller, James Outman, Ryan Pepio, and Miguel Vargas. That's in alphabetical order by last name, by the way, not by debut order or anything. The 9 guys who did debut this year: Michael Busch, Johnny DeLuca, Brian Hudson, Kyle Hurt, Bobby Miller, Nick Robertson, Emmett Sheehan, Gavin Stone, and Gus Varland. One asterisk on that: Gus Varland is a rookie and did debut this year, although he didn't debut with the Dodgers. If you remember, he was a Dodgers minor leaguer, got taken by the Brewers in the Rule 5 draft, debuted with the Brewers, and then they gave him back to the Dodgers. So he's pitched for the Dodgers this year as a rookie and debuted this year, but didn't debut with the Dodgers. So yeah, it's been a lot, more than most years. The Dodgers, it's their 16th, is tied for 13th most in franchise history. And in my lifetime and my parents' lifetimes, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7th most. So yeah, it's a lot of rookies this year, and they've had a big impact. And now my last question comes from Mike Markham at Mike Markham 17. He said, rank these current Dodger players from the most likely to least likely to be on next year's opening day roster. And the guys he gives me are David Peralta, JD Martinez, Chris Taylor, Jason Heyward, Max Muncy, Ahmed Rosario, Kike Hernandez, Kolten Wong, Austin Barnes, and Miguel Rojas. And so just back of the napkin calculations, I went with Rojas the most likely because he has a year plus a team option left on his contract, and he has a very clear role on the team, even with Gavin Lux coming back. Rojas would slide back into the role that they traded for him for in the first place. So I think Rojas is definitely back next year. Max Muncy, I put next because the Dodgers have a $14 million option on him, and he has been a very valuable hitter this year. I think he'll be back. Chris Taylor, I think, is roughly equally likely as Muncy. Maybe they're 2A and 2B because Taylor has 2 years left on his contract. So I think he'll be back. Austin Barnes has 1 year and a team option left on his contract, and there's nobody banging down the door to be that backup catcher. I think Barnes starts the year with the Dodgers next year. I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't finish the year with the Dodgers, but I think opening day he's on the roster. And then we have the 6 guys who aren't under contract after this year. And the order I ranked them: Jason Heyward, JD Martinez, Kike Hernandez, David Peralta, Ahmed Rosario, Kolten Wong. I think Heyward's the most likely because, again, there's a clear role for him. If they want him to keep playing this, I'm the right fielder against right-handed pitching while Mookie Betts plays the infield. That would mean something for Miguel Vargas's future, Michael Busch's future, but I could see them going that way. JD Martinez, if the Dodgers don't go after and get Shohei Ohtani, JD Martinez will be a great option to come back at DH. Kike Hernandez, plays a lot of positions. Fans love him. I think there's some value there, a possibility. David Peralta, team leadership, yeah. On the field, not so much. And then Ahmed Rosario and Kolten Wong, I feel like both of them are one and done kind of guys. That's my thoughts on that. Thank you for that question, Mike. Thank you all for your questions. Vince has a couple questions to answer too, so I will turn it over to him. So thanks again for being with me, and Vince will be along in a minute.
Today's episode is brought to you by Jase Medical. Have you ever been in a position where you maybe weren't prepared for something and you knew you could have been prepared, but you just didn't do it. Well, now we're giving you the chance to be prepared. Don't sleep on it. Jase Medical is here to help you out because they have a Jase case. And this Jase case provides you with 5 life-saving antibiotics for emergency use. If there's ever an earthquake or if there is somewhere, some way, somehow you can't get out of your house for a while or something like that happens, Jase case can help you out because they have those antibiotics there for you, and they are really recommended by doctors, and it's something that you want to get and you need to get, and it's easy to get. All you got to do is fill out a online form and jump on a quick call with one of their board certified physicians, and you can get the Jase case there with 5 life-saving antibiotics for you. And you can also get ongoing care from from their physicians on any treatment related questions. It's doctor created, it's doctor recommended. Don't get caught unprepared. Jase handles everything from the online evaluation to the licensed pharmacy, medication delivery, and ongoing consultation and care. So go check out Jase Medical right now and get your Jase case and don't be caught unprepared. So if you use the promo code locked on, you can get $20 off on these life-saving antibiotics today from Jase Medical at jasemedical.com. All you got to do is go to jasemedical.com. That's JASE medical.com. And you get $20 off on these life-saving antibiotics. Don't be unprepared. Yo, Dodger fans, Vince here to close out the episode, and let's just jump right back into it after I tell you about where you can find us, where we get podcasts and on YouTube, and how you can listen to the home broadcast for any Dodger game with SiriusXM or the SXM app. All you gotta do is search Dodgers and you get the home broadcast for any Dodger game. All right, we have some questions, and we've had this question a lot. But as we get closer, the answer maybe has changed a little bit. We got Mike at Jersey Shore Score with no O in the last score. He says NLDS rotation ? Says his opinion is Bobby Miller games 1 and 4, Ryan Pepiot games 2 and 5, Kershaw on the road in game 3. And he says keeps the rookies at home for 3 of their 4 starts, gives Kershaw a standard week off before pitching in the NLCS. Lynn not on NLDS roster with off days. Penn remains fresh. Everything he laid out there, is defensible, justified, and something that Dodgers could do. Lance Lynn could not be on in this thing in the NLDS roster, and Clayton Kershaw could only be limited to 1 start in the series, and I think that's what it's all contingent on right now. Is if they want Kershaw, like who they want throwing more than once in the series. If you want Clayton Kershaw throwing twice, but that means Bobby Miller only throws once, and you go Kershaw game 1, it'll be ready for game 5. If you want Bobby Miller available for 2 starts, then he's got to go game 1 or 2 to be able to pitch game 4 or 5. And if it doesn't matter, then I guess, can just, if it goes on merit, it's probably Bobby Miller 1 anyways, just based on the stuff that he has and how he's been pitching lately. And the fact of the opening salvo, you want at least 5 innings, and Bobby Miller's been able to provide 6 innings for the most part for a while now in his last few starts, the last couple months. So I think it's going to be, after a long talk with Clayton Kershaw, it's going to go Miller, Kershaw, and then game 3 is going to be maybe Pepiot based, but a lot of other things going on. And then game 4, obviously Miller again. And then game 5, if Kershaw's okay, he goes. And if Kershaw's not okay, then they throw the kitchen sink at it again. It's not an ideal situation, but the Dodgers aren't in an ideal situation right now with the way the rotation is anyway. So that's what I think is going to happen. We got one from at Why You Booing Me. He says, very interested in knowing which Dodger players you think will be coming back as part of the Dodgers coaching staff. I don't think I mean, this is a question for down the line. I mean, Justin Turner is an easy one to say. He might be part of the Dodgers coaching staff at one point. Austin Barnes is probably one that would be part of the Dodgers coaching staff at one point. Other than that, I don't really see anyone else that like stands out in terms of personality and, you know, just what people say about them. But I definitely think those two are guys that could come back as part of the coaching staff one day down the line. We have one question from Michael Castro at Michael Castro TV. He says, what do you make of Mookie Betts September so far? At the time he sent the question, Mookie was OPSing 707 with just 1 homer, 5 RBI, and just a 3.21 slugging in the month of September. Obviously, it's not ideal. I don't think that there's anything wrong other than he's just had a little bit of a colder streak, something that we're not used to seeing from him so far this season. He started off a little slow, but once he got going, he was pretty much hot the entire season, obviously peaking in October when he was very, very, very hot. I don't have a concern other than the general concern I have with Dodgers offense in the postseason. So you know, it sucks. It hasn't been fun to watch, but I don't think the one thing I don't think or I don't see is him like chasing a lot of bad pitches. Like when he gets bad, it's when he's chasing a lot of bad pitches or taking a lot of good pitches. I haven't necessarily seen that too much. He's just not making hard contact with the ball. I think he'll get that going again. Hopefully, you know, hopefully this last week he gets it going and takes that into October. I know it's last year, you know, the postseason wasn't as great for him. Can be a little bit genuinely concerned, but I'm always going to be genuinely concerned about the offense. So there's no reason to be concerned about what they do in the regular season at this point for me. But obviously, I would have loved to have seen them tear it up again and, you know, really make the push for MVP. But I don't know if he you know, number wise, he's still there and everything else. But, you know, aesthetic wise and for the voters, I don't know how it's going to go out. So, you know, we'll see what happens. We have a question from Billy Martinez. He sent it on Instagram. He said, what are Jason Heyward's chances at winning NL Comeback Player of the Year? Who are his biggest competitors? And does the fact that he was not coming back from an injury hurt his chances? I wouldn't imagine that not coming back from injury hurts his chances because he didn't play last year after a certain point because the team let him go and nobody picked him up. So I don't think, you know, it's a comeback player from the year. It doesn't say comeback player of the year from injury. And if that was the case, then the person that's probably his biggest competitor, Cody Bellinger, you know, probably wouldn't be his biggest competitor in the sense either because he didn't come back from injury per se. He just came back from ineffective play that might have been caused by injury, but we can't say for sure that it was. All in all, I think Bellinger's kind of the biggest in competition and probably the guy that's going to win it. I mean, he went from a guy that didn't start a playoff game in when the Dodgers season was on the line to potential, you know, MVP votes and maybe a top 5 MVP finish. So I think Bellinger's got it in the bag. But Jason Heyward, you know, I don't remember how the voting goes for NL Comeback Player of the Year if they vote for multiple people. If they do, Heyward should finish at least top 3, if not second. And, you know, that's good for him, good for the Dodgers because he's been very good out there for them. So, all right. That is all the questions that we have. So we appreciate you for sending in those questions. Make sure to always send them in. You know, if we don't get to them right away, we'll get to them eventually, especially as we have more off days coming up here once October gets started. So that's going to do it for today's episode. Thank you all for listening. Thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen of the day every day. Make sure to find us wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube. Become an everydayer by listening every day. You can become an everydayer by listening every day if you subscribe and make it easier on yourself. Again, wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube, search Locked On Dodgers, which is how you can find us on social media, Twitter and Instagram at Locked On Dodgers. Jeff is on Twitter at Snydog. I'm at Vincent91. You can DM either of us if you have any questions or comments or concerns. You can also send those via email, lockedondodgers@gmail.com, or leave us a voicemail or send us a text at 323-863-LOCK. We're here every weekday morning, and we hope you'll be here with us. When you get in your car, or if you're at home, text my device play podcast, Locked On Dodgers. And remember, you don't have to agree. You just have to listen. Have a good one.